All right, the next thing we have to review today is adding and subtracting rational numbers. In the last video, we reviewed how to use the t-chart with integers. In this video, we're going to review how to use the t-chart to add and subtract rational numbers. That means fractions and decimals. So you can put this right underneath the notes for rational numbers that we did yesterday or in the last video, or you can set up a new page if you prefer to do that. So in this video, we're going to talk about adding and subtracting fractions and decimals. Again, like I said in the last video, if you've lost your notebook, you need to copy this down again. If you still have it in your notes, then you can just work on the examples with me. You don't have to copy this again. How do I add and subtract positive and negative decimals? There's one extra tip besides using the t-chart, and that is you have to remember when we're adding and subtracting positive and negative decimals, we have to line up the decimals. Okay, so we draw our t-chart. I know y'all have gotten used to using the calculator, but there will be a non-calculator portion on SE Ready, so we need to review now how to do this without a calculator. Okay, and we are going to put our numbers in the t-chart, line up the decimals, and then we add or subtract using the rules of the t-chart. So for the first one, negative 8.6, I put that in the negative column, plus 7.2. I bring over the smaller number, and I subtract, and notice my decimals are nice and lined up. 6 minus 2 is 4, 8 minus 1 is 7. It's in the negative column, so it's negative 1.4. Second example, work this with me in your notes. 3.2 minus negative 4.51. Remember when we have minus and negative, we say plus plus. So it's going to be 3.2 plus 4.51. Notice how I didn't line it up from the end of the number. I lined it up using the decimals, and I'm going to fill in a 0 there so that I have my place values lined up. 1, 7, 7. In the positive column, so the answer is positive. Make sure you're lining up the decimals. The third example, negative 4.325 plus negative 3. Now 3 would be the same as 3.000. So I want to line up the decimals. Since they're both in the negative column, I am adding 5, 2, 3.7, and it's in the negative column, so that's a negative answer. Okay? So that is how we add and subtract decimals. The second thing we need to review is how to add and subtract fractions. Your favorite. Fractions are our favorite, I know. Remember the steps. Again, these are already in your notes. If you've lost them, write this down again. If you are given mixed numbers, we want to change them to improper fractions. This will make it easier when we're working with positives and negatives. Next, we have to have a common denominator. Then we add or subtract the numerators only. Remember, that's the top. We keep the denominators the same. Let's try one. 2/5 minus negative 3/10. Same rules as before. When I see minus and negative, I'm going to go plus, plus. So now I'm doing 2/5 plus 3/10. My next step is to get a common denominator. Between 5 and 10, my common denominator should be 10. The least common denominator. You list out all the common factors. 5 times 1 is 5. 5 times 2 is 10. 10 times 1 is 10. That's the first one they have in common. Now, here I did times 1, so this just stays the same. Here I did times 2, so I also have to multiply my numerator times 2, and I get 4. And now I'm ready to add. Remember, I only add the numerators. 4 plus 3 is 7. Denominator stays the same, 7/10. Let's try one now with mixed numbers before you start on your practice. Okay. Remember I said to convert to improper fractions first. We do that by doing around the world. Multiply the denominator times the whole number, add it to the numerator. Multiply the denominator times the whole number, add it to the numerator. Okay? 4 times 3 is 12, plus 1 is 13. This is 13 over 4, and it is negative. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8. Denominator stays the same. Okay, next I'm going to have to put these in my t-chart. Okay, 13 over 4 is negative. 8 over 3 is positive. I'm leaving a little bit of room to the side for what I'm going to have to do 4 then is the bigger one. So I bring over 8/3. Okay? And then signs are different, so we are subtracting. But before we can do that, we have to get the least common denominator. Between 4 and 3, 4 times 3 is 12. 12 is our least common denominator. 4 times 3 gave me 12, so 13 times 3 gives me 39. 3 times 4 gave me 12, so 8 times 4 gives me 32. Remember, I'm subtracting here, so I'm going to subtract my numerators. 39 minus 32 is 7, and the denominator stays the same, 7/12. Last thing to do, the sign of the column is the sign of the answer. -7/12. Okay, so we tried one with fractions, we tried one with mixed numbers. We're going to use the T-chart for the signs like we did before. We convert to improper fractions, find a common denominator, add or subtract. Okay, at this point you should be ready to try the digits assignment that goes with this, adding and subtracting rational numbers.